The wind blew gently through the tall pine trees, whispering secrets into the cool evening air. The moon, bright and round, hung above the small white cottage at the edge of Maple Hill. Inside, Sophia sat by her window, singing softly to herself, her voice drifting into the night like a soft breeze. Her voice was clear and sweet, like warm honey poured over morning bread. She had no idea that someone was listening. Sophia lived alone in the cottage. Her parents had passed away when she was a child, and her grandmother who raised her had passed 5 years ago. Since then, she had stayed in the cottage, living a quiet life. She didn't have many friends, and she didn't mind. She had her books, her garden, and her music. That was enough, at least, she thought it was. Every night, Sophia would sit by her window and sing. Sometimes they were songs she learned long ago from her grandmother. Other times they were songs she made up. Tonight she sang a melody she had never sung before. The words came to her like a gentle breeze. In the dark where no one sees, a voice may float upon the trees. If hearts can hear beyond the sound, love may find where it is bound. She paused. The words felt strange, like they weren't hers. But she kept singing. Not far from the cottage, deep in the woods, a man stood still. His name was Elias. He had no home, no past that he could remember, and no clear idea of who he was. For the last few months, he had wandered from town to town, sleeping under trees, following roads that led nowhere. But tonight, as he walked through the woods, something stopped him. A voice so beautiful and gentle that it made him close. His eyes and listen. It wasn't just music, it was comfort, something he hadn't felt in a long time. He followed it, step by step, until he stood just beyond the trees near Sophia's cottage. He could see the glow from her window, and her voice, it called to something deep inside him. He didn't dare go closer. He didn't even know why he had come, but he stayed in the shadows listening. When she stopped singing, he stepped back and disappeared into the woods. The next morning, Sophia woke with a strange feeling. She looked out her window, half expecting to see someone standing there. But the trees stood silent, and the breeze was still. She shook her head and smiled. "Just a dream," she whispered. She got dressed, watered her garden, and made a small breakfast. Then she sat on her front steps with a book, but she couldn't focus. That strange feeling stayed with her all day, like someone had been near. Her window last night, as the sun dipped low, turning the sky pink and orange, she found herself walking toward the woods. She didn't know why. Her feet simply moved. The forest was quiet. Birds chirped softly, and the leaves rustled above. Suddenly she stopped. There, near an old oak tree, was something unusual: footprints. Fresh ones. She bent down, touching the ground. They were not hers. Someone had been here. Her heart beat faster, not with fear, but with something else. Curiosity. "Hello?" She called softly. No one answered. Elias was watching from behind a tree. He didn't know what to say. He wanted to speak, but his voice caught in his throat. He hadn't spoken to anyone in weeks. And this girl, her voice had pulled him through the darkness like a thread of light. He turned and walked away silently, not ready to face her. That night, Sophia sang again. This time she sang with her heart full of wonder. "Someone heard me, I can tell, a soul lost in a silent shell. If you are near, don't be afraid, come to the light where songs are made. Elias sat on a rock deep in the forest, his eyes closed. Her voice wrapped around him, soft and full of something he couldn't name. He wanted to run to her, to tell her who he was, but the truth was, he didn't know himself. The next few days passed quietly, but each night Elias returned to the woods near her window. And each night Sophia sang with more feeling, sensing someone out there. She began to write letters, though she didn't send them. She left them near the old oak tree, wrapped in cloth just in case. The first letter said, "To whoever is listening, if you can hear my voice, I hope it gives you peace. I don't know who you are or where you came from, but I feel you near, and that makes me sing louder. Maybe one day you'll answer back." Sophia. Elias found the letter the next morning. His hands trembled as he read it. No one had written to him in years, not that he remembered. He kept the letter folded in his coat pocket, close to his heart. He wanted to write back. So that night, after listening to her sing, he left a note in the same place. "Dear Sophia, your voice is the only light I've known in a long time. I don't remember my past. I don't know who I am. But when I hear you, I feel like I belong somewhere. Thank you for your songs." Your mystery listener Sophia found the note the next day. Her hands shook. Her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of something deeper. A connection. A thread between two souls. From that day forward, they wrote letters to each other, left under the old oak tree. They still hadn't seen each other, but with every word shared, they felt closer. Elias told her small things about the stars, the smell of rain, the way her voice made the cold feel warm. Sophia told him about her garden, the names of her flowers, and the way the moon looked when she couldn't sleep. They were strangers who spoke like friends. One night, after singing, Sophia wrote, "I don't know what you look like, or even your name, but I feel like I've known you for years. Would you ever come to the light? Would you let me see your face? I promise I won't be afraid." Elias held that letter in his hand long into the night. He sat under the stars, his heart torn. He wanted to go, but fear held him back, not fear of her, but fear of what she might see in him. Still, the next morning he wrote back, "If I come, will you sing for me? Will you sing not just to the night, but to me alone? I will come soon, I promise." Sophia smiled as she read it. She placed her hand on her chest, where her heart beat fast. She didn't know who this man was, but she knew deep inside that he was important. And so she waited. That night, she sang her most beautiful song yet. It wasn't written down. It came from her soul. "Come, my stranger, come and see. The one who sings waits patiently. Step from the dark into the day, and let your fears be washed away." And in the shadows Elias stood, a few steps closer to the cottage than ever before. He was almost ready. The air was still that evening. The trees barely moved, and even the birds were quiet. Sophia sat by her window, the familiar place where her songs took flight. But tonight her hands trembled slightly as she held her notebook. She had written a new song, one meant only for him, her mystery man. She lit a small candle and placed it by the window. The golden flame flickered, a silent signal, a gentle invitation. In her heart, she hoped he would come tonight. She didn't know what he looked like or what kind of life he had lived. All she knew was that his letters had become a part of her day, and his silence, when it came, made her heart ache. She began to sing. I've walked alone on quiet roads, where silence falls and moonlight glows. But now I know I'm not the same, for wind has carried me your name. Her voice floated through the air, soft and full of longing. It carried across the trees, weaving through the branches until it reached Elias. He stood not far from her cottage, hidden behind a tall cedar tree. His heart beat loudly in his chest. Tonight he had made a promise to step out of the shadows, to show himself. But as he listened to her voice, fear and hope tangled inside him. He wasn't sure what she would think when she saw him. His clothes were old, his face tired, his eyes shadowed by a past he couldn't fully remember. But he had her words, her songs, her notes tucked safely in his coat, and they gave him courage. Step by step he moved closer. His boots crunched softly on the leaves. The light from her window glowed like a star in the night. As he approached the edge of the trees, he stopped. He saw her, truly saw her, for the first time. Sophia sat at the window, her eyes half closed as she sang. Her long brown hair flowed over her shoulders like silk. The candlelight touched her skin, making her look like something out of a dream. He stepped forward again, slowly, carefully. Inside the house, Sophia suddenly stopped singing. She felt something, someone near. She turned her head and looked out into the night, and then she saw him. A tall figure stood just beyond the garden fence. He didn't speak, he didn't move, but his presence was strong and quiet, like the forest itself. Sophia's breath caught in her throat. Her first instinct wasn't fear, it was recognition. As if her heart already knew him, she stood up slowly, walked to the door, and stepped outside. The grass was cool under her feet. The candle flickered in the window behind her, casting a warm light on the porch. "Are you him?" she asked gently. Elias opened his mouth, but at first no sound came out. Then finally he spoke, his voice rough but careful, like someone who hadn't used it much. "I think I am." Sophia smiled, a soft, kind smile. "You don't have to be afraid." "I've lived in the shadows for so long," Elias said, stepping closer. "I didn't think I'd ever belong anywhere again, but your voice, it gave me a place, even if I was only listening from the trees." She tilted her head slightly. "Why were you afraid to come sooner?" He looked down at his hands. "Because I'm not whole. I don't remember where I came from. I don't have anything, not even a last name. I'm just Elias." Sophia walked down the steps toward him, her eyes never leaving his. "Then Elias is enough." Those words, so simple and true, made something shift in his heart. He felt warmth, the kind he hadn't felt in years, if ever. He let out a small breath, like he had been holding it forever. Sophia reached out and gently touched his hand. It was rough and cold. Her hand was small and warm. "Would you like to come inside?" she asked. He hesitated only a moment, then nodded. She led him into the cottage, into the light and warmth of the room. The walls were filled with books, and soft blankets were draped over chairs. The scent of herbs and fresh bread lingered in the air. Elias looked around slowly. "It's beautiful, like your voice." Sophia poured him a cup of warm tea and handed it to him. He took it with both hands and sat down near the fire. "You don't remember anything?" she asked, sitting across from him. He shook his head. I remember waking up in a field months ago. I had this name Elias and a coat with no wallet, no paper, nothing. I've been walking ever since, sleeping in forests, eating what I could find or what kind people gave me. Until I heard you. Sophia listened carefully, her heart softening with every word. You were alone for so long. He nodded slowly, but when I heard your song I felt found. They sat in silence for a moment, the fire crackling softly. Between them then Sophia said, I think we were both waiting for something or someone. He looked at her. Maybe we were waiting for each other. The next morning Sophia made breakfast eggs, toast, and hot tea. Elias ate slowly, as if savoring each bite. He offered to help in the garden, and together they worked side by side, planting new herbs and pulling weeds. He was quiet but steady, and Sophia found his presence calming. As the days passed, Elias began to open up more. He told her about the dreams he had, strange flashes of places and faces he couldn't name. Sometimes he dreamed of a little boy with curly hair. Other times of a fire in the distance, smoke rising into the sky. But nothing ever stayed long enough to hold on to. Sophia listened without judgment. She kept singing, 2 every evening, as if her songs were a bridge between their hearts. Elias sat near her window every time, his eyes closed, letting her voice wash over him. One evening, as the sky turned golden, he asked her, Why do you sing? She thought for a moment. I think I sing because it helps me feel less alone. It fills the silence, and it reaches people, even the ones I can't see. Elias looked at her with quiet wonder. You reached me. That night they wrote a letter together, even though they were now face to face. It was a new habit. They started writing letters to each other, folding them and tucking them into a box near the fireplace. It was their way of speaking truths that felt too tender for voice. Asterisk, dear Sophia, asterisk, asterisk, every note you sing is a step toward healing. For you and for me. I may not know where I've been, but I think I know where I want to be now beside you. Elias dear. Elias, asterisk, asterisk. You came from the shadows, but you brought light with you. I think my songs were waiting for your ears. I don't know what the future holds, but tonight I'm not alone. That's enough. Asterisk, asterisk, Sophia, asterisk, and outside the wind stirred the trees gently. Like it was listening, Elias began to have fewer nightmares. The cottage felt more like home, and Sophia found that her voice, once a tool for peace, had become a language of love. But questions still hung quietly in the air. Where had Elias truly come from? And would the past come looking for him? For now they chose to stay in the present, in each other's company, where her voice and his silence met like 2 puzzle pieces finely fitting. The forest, the cottage, the stars above, they all seemed to listen. The mystery man had stepped out of the night, and Sophia was no longer singing alone. Summer soft around them like a gentle hug. Birds sang each morning. The flowers in Sophia's garden bloomed brighter than ever. The air was fresh, and the days passed slowly and peacefully. Sophia and Elias found a rhythm together. He fixed broken parts of the cottage, an old window that used to rattle in the wind, a squeaky door hinge, the garden fence. She sang while she worked or read aloud from her favorite books. Sometimes they would take long walks through the forest trails. They didn't talk much on those walks, but their silence was never heavy. It was warm and calm, like the feeling of holding someone's hand. Still, even with the peace between them, something tugged at the edges of Elias's mind. It was like standing in a fog, knowing there was something beyond it, but unable to see clearly. One night, he had a dream. He was standing in front of a small house, not Sophia's cottage, but one he didn't recognize. A child stood in the doorway, reaching out a hand. Elias stepped forward. The boy's face was familiar, though he couldn't place it. Then came a name, whispered in the dream like a gust of wind. Isaac. Elias sat up in bed, breathless. The name rang in his head like a bell dot in the morning. He told Sophia. "I had a dream," he said over breakfast. "There was a boy and a name Isaac." Sophia looked at him carefully. "Do you think that was your name?" "Or his? I don't know," Elias said. "But it felt close, like it was meant for me to hear." Sophia nodded slowly. "We could look into it. Maybe visit the nearby town library? Or ask around." Elias hesitated. "What if I find out something I don't want to know?" She reached across the table and took his hand. "Then we'll face it together." They decided to go into the nearby town of Fair Hollow that afternoon. Sophia hadn't visited much since her grandmother passed, but she remembered the library near the square. It was quiet and old, filled with books that smelled like Time Dot as they entered. The librarian, an elderly woman with kind eyes and silver hair, looked up from her desk. "Good afternoon. Can I help you?" Sophia smiled politely. "We're looking for any local records, birth names, maybe news reports. Around a year or two ago, we're trying to find someone." The woman adjusted her glasses. "We have public records and a few newspaper archives. You're welcome to look." They spent hours searching. Names, photos, places. Elias kept his eyes moving, looking for anything that sparked recognition. Then, tucked inside an old newspaper folder from 15 months ago, he froze. There it was, a photo. A younger version of himself, though with cleaner clothes and a tired smile. The headline read, "Local man disappears after car crash. Family pleads for help." His real name was listed beneath it, Elias Carter. He touched the paper as if it might vanish. The article said he was involved in a car accident on a rainy road outside of Willow Creek. The car was found, but he had vanished. His family searched for months with no luck. There was a phone number for a woman listed as his sister, Mara. "Carter," Sophia read the article beside him in silence. "It's you," she said softly. Elias nodded slowly. "I remember none of this, not the crash, not even having a sister." But now the truth sat in front of them. His past wasn't just a mystery, it was real. And someone out there had been looking for him. The librarian, who had been watching from afar, stepped forward gently. "I remember this story," she said. "It was heartbreaking. He was listed as missing for months. There were flyers all over town." Elias felt dizzy. He stepped outside to breathe. Sophia followed. "I have a sister," he said, staring into the sky. "She's probably still waiting for me." Sophia's heart ached. Of course, he couldn't stay hidden in the woods forever. He had a life, a family. And she had only just begun to know him. "What do you want to do?" she asked softly. Elias didn't answer right away. He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the quiet worry in her eyes. He gently took her hand. I want to remember everything, but I don't want to lose what I've found with you. You won't, she said, though a part of her wasn't so sure. What if his past pulled him away? Back at the cottage they sat in silence, the candle glowing in the corner as the night came. That evening, Sophia didn't sing. Her voice felt stuck, like a bird trapped in a room with no open window. But Elias stood behind her by the piano. Would you sing? He asked. Please. She looked at him. I don't know what to sing. Sing what you feel. So she did. Her voice was soft, almost like a whisper. If I set you free, will you return? Will the fire fade or still burn? If your name calls you back to then, will you still find me again? Elias closed his eyes. Her voice was no longer just music, it was a promise. He stepped forward, wrapped his arms around her gently, and whispered, Your voice is home. The next day, Elias made a decision. He would call the number from the article. The phone rang twice before a woman's voice answered. Hello? Mara? He said, unsure. There was a pause. Yes? Who is this? It's Elias. Another pause, then a gasp. Then the sound of the phone hitting the floor, followed by hurried footsteps. Mara? He called. Her voice came back, shaky with tears. Elias? Is it really you? Yes, I don't remember much, but I'm safe. I'm alive, she sobbed. Where are you? I'm not far from Fair Hollow. I've been staying with someone who helped me. Please, I need to see you. We've searched for so long. I know, I want to see you too. I just needed time. When he hung up, he turned to Sophia. She's coming tomorrow. Sophia nodded. That's good. But that night she couldn't sleep. Her heart felt heavy. What if this was the moment she lost him? In the middle of the night, she went outside. She stood in the moonlight, her eyes full of quiet tears, and she sang again. Come what may, if you must go, let love be all I need to know. The voice you heard beneath the sky will wait if years go passing by. Elias heard her through the window. He stood there for a long time, watching the girl who had brought him back from nowhere. He whispered to himself, I'm not going anywhere. The next day, a silver car pulled up the dirt road near the cottage. A woman with dark hair stepped out. Mara. Her eyes locked on Elias, and she ran to him, throwing her arms around him. You're alive, she wept. You're really here. He hugged her tightly, and memories, soft and slow, began to trickle back. Childhood, laughter, storms, their mother's voice, their old backyard swing. It was all real. Sophia stood back, watching the reunion with a small smile and a quiet heart. Later that evening, Mara sat with Sophia on the porch. Thank you, she said, for taking care of him. Sophia nodded. He found me, really. Or maybe we found each other. Elias joined them a moment later, sitting beside Sophia. He reached for her hand. I told Mara I'm not going back to the city. Not yet. I want to stay here, at least for now, with you. Sophia's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but relief. And Elias smiled. You sang me back to life. I'm not walking away from that. The wind blew gently, carrying the scent of jasmine and pine. And somewhere between the song, the silence, and the truth, love had found its voice. The days after Mara's visit passed quietly, but with a new kind of warmth. For the first time since Elias arrived at the cottage, there were no more shadows between them. He knew who he was now. His name had returned to him like the slow rise of dawn after a long night. Yet even with his past now part of the present, he chose to stay. Not because he was running from something anymore, but because he had finally found where he felt he belonged. Not in the city, not in a busy life filled with people who once knew him, but here, with Sophia among the trees, the quiet and her music. One morning, as the dew still clung to the grass, Elias came into the cottage holding something in his hand, a small, smooth wooden box. It looked old, worn, but cared for. "I found this in the forest yesterday," he said, setting it gently on the table. Buried near the base of an old cedar tree. Sophia opened it slowly. Inside was a delicate silver locket, dusty with time, but still shining underneath. There was also a faded note, folded twice. She unfolded it carefully, dotted read, "To whoever finds this locket belonged to my mother. I buried it here after the fire took our home. If you have found it, may it bring you peace, as it once brought her. L.H." Sophia traced her finger over the name. L.H. Elias leaned in. "Do you think this is a sign?" "Maybe," she said. "Maybe this place is full of stories. And now we're part of it too." That night, Sophia placed the locket on a shelf near her piano. As she touched the keys, a new melody came to her, soft and full of hope. She began to play, and Elias listened from his chair near the window. Her voice joined the piano, light and clear. Some songs are buried deep in time, forgotten notes, a broken rhyme, but if we listen close enough, we'll find the heart inside the rough. When she finished, Elias clapped slowly, a smile growing across his face. That was beautiful. Sophia blushed slightly. It just came to me, like someone was whispering the notes in my ear. Elias stood and walked over to her. "I think your music has always been a bridge between the past and the present, between souls." They began working on songs together. Elias wasn't a singer, but he had a good ear for rhythm. He would tap out soft beats with his hands or hum a background harmony. Sophia wrote the lyrics, and together they created music that felt like it came from the woods themselves. One day, Elias suggested something different. "Why don't we share one of your songs with the town?" Sophia looked surprised. "You mean sing in public?" "Yes," he said gently. "At the summer fair in Fair Hollow. Mara told me it's next weekend. There's a stage where anyone can perform. You could sing one of the songs we wrote." Sophia hesitated. The idea of standing before strangers made her heart race. For years, her voice was something she shared with the stars and trees, not with crowds. "I'm not sure." Elias smiled softly. "Your voice brought me back to life. Maybe it can reach others too." She thought about it for a while. That night she stood outside and looked up at the stars. "I've always sung for myself," she whispered, "but maybe it's time to sing for the world too." So she agreed. The week leading up to the fair was filled with practice. Elias helped her set up a small stage behind the cottage so she could grow comfortable performing outside. He would sit in a chair and pretend to be an audience of 20 people, clapping and cheering wildly after every song. It made her laugh, and it helped her believe she could do it. Finally, the day of the fair arrived. Fair Hollow was alive with color and sound. Children ran through the streets with painted faces. Stalls lined the square, selling everything from sweet pies to homemade candles. Music played from radios and violins. The smell of roasted corn and apple cider filled the air. Sophia wore a soft white dress and a sunflower clip in her hair. Elias held her hand as they walked toward the small wooden stage near the fountain. "I'll be right here," he whispered. No matter what, she stepped onto the stage, heart pounding. A few people looked up, curious. A man with a guitar finished his song and nodded at her kindly as he stepped down. The announcer smiled and said, "Next up, we have Sophia, singing an original song." She took a deep breath. The crowd waited. Then she began. Her voice started low, trembling just a little. But with each note, her strength grew. Her hands moved gently across the keys of the small keyboard they had brought, and the words flowed like a river. "I once sang to the wind and the sky, to the trees and the stars passing by. But tonight I sing to hearts that hear, to those who lost and now draw near." The crowd grew quiet. Even the children stopped running. People turned to face her, eyes wide, moved by something they couldn't name. When she finished, silence hung for a beat. Then applause loud and full, rising like a wave. Sophia blinked. Stunned. Elias stood with the others, clapping with tears in his eyes. He had never seen her shine so brightly. Not just because she had sung well, but because she had given her heart to the world. She stepped down from the stage, cheeks red, and walked straight into his arms. "You did it," he said. "I couldn't have without you," she replied. Later that day, a woman approached them. She wore glasses and had a gentle smile. "I'm a music teacher from a school in the next town," she said. "Would you consider performing at our local event next month? The students would love to hear you." Sophia's eyes widened. I'll think about it." As they walked back toward the cottage that evening, the sun setting behind them, Sophia held Elias's hand tightly. "Do you think this is the start of something?" she asked. "I think it's the beginning of everything," he replied. They reached home and sat outside as stars began to blink in the sky. Sophia looked at the silver locket still hanging on the shelf. "Funny how something buried long ago can change today," she said. Elias nodded. "Just like me." They wrote one more letter that night, not for each other, but for the future. Asterisk to the one who finds this, asterisk, know that music, even when lost, can return. Voices, even when silent, can sing again. And hearts, even when broken, can love once more. Asterisk, we are proof of that. Asterisk, asterisk, Sophia and Elias, asterisk. They placed it in the wooden box with the locket and buried it beneath the cedar tree once more, like a seed waiting to bloom again, and above them the night sang back. The first golden leaves of autumn danced gently across the garden as the wind passed through. The air had turned cooler, but not cold, just enough to make the evenings feel crisp and fresh. The forest around Sophia's cottage had begun to change, each tree painting itself in red, orange, and yellow. Asterisk, asterisk, inside the cottage. Everything was still the same, and yet everything had changed. Sophia sat at the piano in the early morning light, her fingers drifting across the keys as if thinking out loud. The sound was soft and thoughtful. In the corner, Elias sat with a notebook open, jotting down song titles, lyrics, and little ideas they had dreamed up together. They had begun writing music as a pair. It was quiet work, slow and honest, like tending a garden. They wrote songs about hope, loss, silence, and second chances. Sometimes Elias would hum a melody that came from nowhere, and Sophia would shape it into something beautiful. Since the fair in Fair Hollow, Sophia had been invited to sing in 3 more events. People were drawn to her voice, not just for its beauty, but for its truth. And everywhere she went, Elias was there, quietly supporting her from the side. One evening, as they sat near the fire sipping tea, Elias looked at her with something serious in his eyes. "There's something I want to ask you," he said. Sophia smiled softly. "Okay, I know I still have a lot to remember, and maybe pieces of my past will keep showing up. But everything that matters to me now, I found here. I found you." She set her cup down gently. He took a deep breath and continued. "Would you want to build a life together? Not just here, not just for now, but always? I don't have a ring yet, but I promise I will. I just need to know, will you stay with me?" Sophia didn't need to think. "Yes," she whispered. "I was waiting for you long before I knew your name. And now that you're here, I'm not letting go." He leaned forward and kissed her gently, the firelight dancing in her hair. It wasn't just a promise, it was the beginning of something new. In the months that followed, they prepared for a small wedding under the cedar tree, the same tree where Elias once listened to her songs from the shadows, the same place they buried their first letter together, the same tree where he first found the silver box, and she found the courage to keep singing. The wedding was quiet and simple. Sophia wore a dress the color of ivory cream, with tiny pearls sewn along the sleeves. Her hair was gathered with fresh jasmine. Elias wore a clean white shirt, rolled at the sleeves, and a soft smile that never left his face. Mara came, of course, smiling with tears in her eyes. A few neighbors, a few townsfolk from Fair Hollow, who had heard Sophia sing, and in the front row, the music teacher who had become a dear friend. When Sophia walked down the short path of petals to stand beside Elias, she carried no bouquet, only the silver locket in her hand. Their vows were not long, but full of meaning. "I once had no voice," Elias said softly, his eyes full of memory. "I lived without a name, without a story. Then you sang, and I became real again. You gave me back to myself." Sophia looked into his eyes. "And I once sang only to the wind. I never thought someone would hear me, would answer back. But you did. You stepped out of the dark, and now I never want to sing alone again." As the ceremony ended, the wind stirred gently through the trees, as if the forest itself was clapping. Afterward there was music. Of course there was. Sophia sang one of their first songs together. Elias sat beside her, tapping rhythm on the wooden table with his fingers. Everyone listened in perfect stillness. This is a song for the heart that waits, for the night that holds and the light that breaks, a tune for the soul that dares to hear, the voice that whispers, "I'm still." Near, the guests wiped tears, and even the birds seemed to hush their wings to listen. Later that night, as the stars blinked into the sky and the lanterns around the cottage glowed, Elias and Sophia sat by the fire once more. But now they were husband and wife. He handed her a small gift, finally, a simple ring made of silver and wood. She slipped it on with a quiet laugh. "Perfect," she said. They kept their tradition alive, writing one last letter and placing it in the wooden box. This time it was addressed to the future. Asterisk, to the one who feels lost. Asterisk, to the soul hiding in silence, the heart still waiting to be found. Please know that a voice can carry far. Please know that love, when true, always finds a way. If you are quiet, if you listen, you might hear a song meant just for you. Asterisk, we did. Asterisk, asterisk, Sophia and Elias Carter, asterisk. They closed the lid and buried it again beneath the cedar, with hope that someone, someday, would dig it up and be reminded that love can bloom from the quietest places. The seasons turned. Winter came with snow that blanketed the cottage in white. Sophia's voice carried through the cold, soft and warm as always. Elias's hands, once unsure, now played along beside her. Their songs began to reach more people through recordings, then letters, and eventually a tiny music studio they built beside the cottage. But no matter how far their voices traveled, the heart of everything remained the same. A girl who sang to the night, a man who heard her, and a love that grew. Between the spaces in the silence, the world around them kept moving. But in their corner of it, where music and love met under the trees, time slowed and peace stayed. Forever. The end of the story.